Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole, and today, as always, I have a very special guest. And many of you may know him. If you follow Dream Leapers, well, you know him anyway, but if you follow Dream Leapers, you may remember that he came and talked to us 2 years ago now. It is when he had a novel. I think it was his third novel at the time, Laws of Annihilation. I can't wait to hear if that's turning into a TV series or a film. We're going to find out. I will say all of us know him as Pretty Boy Daryl Jenks in Coming to America, or Dr. Peter Benson on the critically acclaimed medical drama ER. If you remember that, that was before all of these other medical dramas that have deluged our television landscape. He was a pioneer. Eriq is a remarkable actor, director, producer, and author, and he has been honing his craft for years. Along with his many iconic roles on screen and his gripping novels, and I've read them, so I know, he has nurtured a prolific career working steadily as a director, taking the helm for HBO, Showtime, NBC, Fox, and CBS. And as a valued member of the Wolf Camp, Dick Wolf Entertainment Camp, Eriq has spent 4 years as executive producer and director on Chicago PD. I watch all the Chicago series. He's also directed episodes of the New York staple Law and Order. And today, we're going to dive into his latest project, On Call. Have you seen it yet? I've been watching. Actually, I watched the whole thing. You know how we binge watch. It's a police drama series which debuted early last month. Eriq not only directed the pilot and a few episodes for this series, but he also serves as the executive producer. And he has finally returned to the screen. He stars in this as well. So we're going to learn all about everything that Eriq is doing. Please join me in welcoming Eriq La Salle now.
Morning.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. You know what? It's so funny. I saw there's this new series on, and you know how we are now in binge watch world. I saw it. I was like, what is this? What is On Call? I have to watch it. So I saw your name in the early credits. I was like, oh, this is good. But we've grown accustomed, Eriq, to seeing you in these big behind the scene roles, which is a really nice thing. But then there you are in a really big role as well. So how did On Call come to be? And tell us about this series.
Well, I've been working with Dick Wolf for several years now in the Wolf Camp, and like you said earlier, I was the executive producer on Chicago PD. So I ran that for 4 years, and so then I came back. The Universal, I owe a lot to Perlina Ibakwe, who is the chairman of Universal, a sister, who said, look, I know you're leaving the show, but I want to keep you in the family, so let me give you a deal. So we got this deal. And one of the things she said was, it is my hope, and this was about 4 years ago, she said, it is my hope that you help usher Dick Wolf into the streaming world, that I would like to be a part of your goal. So we were at the time developing, give you a little bit of tea. At the time we were aggressively looking to do a remake of New York Undercover. And
Oh, yeah.
we thought that would be our first streaming show. And it's still alive and it's still a hope, but we haven't quite found all of the elements to make it happen, So anyway,
on that front, Eriq, just because we're talking way behind the scenes now, and people love hearing about that. It takes a long time to bring all of the forces together, including the financial resources to have something jump off. So, like, when did you start on the New York Undercover, to just give a sense? It is not here yet.
It was about, they did a pilot while I was on Chicago PD. They did a pilot around 6 years ago, and it didn't go well. So it sort of sat there, but they kept saying, look, we still have this great idea, this great property, this great identity. So they wanted to keep it alive. And so if you think about it, so it went back as far as like 6 years ago with that pilot. And then around 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when I exited my deal, we started actively talking about it. We started doing some pitches. We started meeting writers. So it takes a long time. So you're literally talking about the span of a good 5 years, and we're still not there, But in the meantime, Dick's son, Elliot, came up with this idea of on call. And so then they teamed him with an amazing showrunner by the name of Tim Walsh. And so Tim got in and wrote these really, really cool scripts. And the show, again, when we talk about behind the scenes, it originally was being developed for some network named Freevee, which, I'm like, and that's, I guess, like some junior property of Amazon. And so it was going to be that, but it just kept growing in scope, and it kept growing, and it started coming together. And then Amazon was like, hold on, let's use this as our main platform. So we shot the pilot 2.5 years ago. We shot half the series, and then, I came on board 2.5 years ago. By the time we got around to shooting, it was around 2 years ago, maybe just under 2 years ago. Then, of course, we start shooting, and we get shut down by the strike.
Right.
So that stretched it out more than normal. But to your point, yes, stuff does normally take and can take a very long time. Things were magnified with the strike and that built-in delay. So but it all came together. So and then at some point, I went through some casting choices of who I wanted the Lasman character to be, which is my character. And so originally I was not going to act in it. I was going to exec produce it, and I was going to direct. So I direct half the episode, so it's 8 episodes. I direct 4, including the pilot and second episode. So I was going to cast my best friend, Michael Beach, who's an amazing actor. And everyone was excited about it. And then Amazon was like, hold on one second. Then we ended up losing him. So then at some point, right around, and then even around the time when the books were coming out, I knew that, as I've known you and had an opportunity to work with you, and it's so difficult getting publicity as an author. It's even difficult to get publicity as a director. I mean, if you're acting, you can get on
that's the front role. That's the easier.
So I said, well, here's an opportunity where this is pre-strike now, so I wasn't anticipating. And so I said, the show's going to be coming out. I can piggyback off of the publicity that I would get as an actor, and then they're concerned with you about being a director and executive producer. That sort of fits into this nice package that they can promote. But the key element is the acting. So once I was like, well, let me do this so that I can get some great publicity for my book, and so it was supposed to come out last year. The show was supposed to come out last year.
Right.
What came out last year, Laws of Annihilation, and that's when you and I first met.
Right.
So man plans, God laughs. So I thought I had this brilliant plan, only to see it delayed. But again, I think in God's brilliance, it happens when it's supposed to happen. And so now, when it came out it came out 2 weeks ago. It automatically was #1 in the country. It was number 2 worldwide. Then it became #1 worldwide. Now it's #1 in 40 different countries. So the timing is cool, and
the timing is amazing, because I want to say if it had been last year, you probably wouldn't have gotten as much attention. People got tired of binge watching, and a lot of people turned the TV off. These big streaming networks had to lay people off. There was, like everything else, there was kind of a shrinking of the value and the engagement. And I think it has begun again.
Well, it's also
it's so doggone cold. People are home.
Well, but it's also, I think it also speaks to the quality, and I think it speaks to,
absolutely,
because you throw millions of dollars at a project, doesn't mean that it's good. And I think
Fair.
streamers started getting very sloppy with that and very arrogant, which is once, well, we're going to say it's big. And so everyone's going to follow. People started rejecting that. And one cool thing about this show is, well, one of the many cool things is it's a half-hour show. It's a throwback to dramas of the 50s and 60s. A lot of people don't know that dramas actually, a lot of drama started off as half hours. You had Adam
Hmm.
12, which is a cop show, which is this show is loosely based on that. You had Dragnet, you had like The Naked City. So there were half-hour dramas back in the 50s and 60s. So I just think it's brilliant of Dick Wolf to sort of, being who he is, to sort of harken back to that era and see how needed it is now. Because of course, think about this. Once Netflix, 2 years ago, sort of admitted that, look, we've overspent, and everyone started saying that model was not sustainable. You can't just throw a gazillion dollars at a project, and it's not for sustainability. I think they were brilliant in the attention that they grabbed and how they launched, et cetera. So when people understood that that was not sustainable, right now the industry is in a very interesting place where they're trying to reinvent themselves. A lot of the streamers are corporate owned. And so when you're corporate owned, you have to accept that you only make up this percentage of their revenue. Like Apple TV, that's this, like Apple is making, Amazon, trust me,
Right.
it might even be less for Amazon, so it's a
Even
different
though Amazon Prime is very popular, but it's still
but it's still
relative.
it's
Relative.
still just make it, you have other things, whereas back in the day, of course, studios, that's
Yeah.
your only revenue. That's your major. You started breaking into merchandising, you started breaking into ancillary markets, et cetera, but that's your meat and potatoes. So I think right now people are looking for different ways of telling stories. I think they're looking for more economical ways, because there's been this you know, oversaturation. And so I
Yes.
think that's part of what you were talking
Right.
about,
Mhm.
of why things started slowing down and people started, because it was too much. And as many streamers, how many times do you sit on your sofa on a Saturday night and you just go, look, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I just want to watch. And you,
And you
many
click,
sleep,
click, and
you
you
keep
click.
clicking and you're
There's
like,
nothing
what?
to watch. My
And each
sisters and I call each other and say this. What are you watching? There's nothing to watch. And so to your point, I think it is a very good point. This show is well done. It's really well done. And so when you start watching, you go, okay, it's good. You know, I,
yeah.
I, I want to invest my time in this because it's worth it. And so let's talk about the show itself a little bit, because first of all, it is an ensemble cast, but there's a female lead,
Yes.
right? And that's in a cop show. That is
Mhm.
not the norm. How did you come to the decision to have a female lead?
Well, and that's all written before I get there.
Okay.
So when Elliot, Dick's son, conceived of the show, and by the time he ran it through his father, and they talked about it, and by the time I got it, the script was already written, so
Who's
I
there?
didn't
Okay.
put into that. But I think fundamentally, you are always looking for um, more original feeling ways of
Mhm.
doing things. The original feeling. Everything's been done. This isn't the first time we've had this, but it's not overdone. So it feels refreshing. It feels something, like there's a saying that there are only eight stories in Hollywood, and they just sort of keep getting retold. But if that's true, you have to find original ways of telling or retelling those eight stories. And so having a strong female, and Troy Belisario kills it. I mean, she just
Yeah.
absolutely kills it. And then having a Latino co-lead as her partner, that dynamic to me is sexy because it's different. It's not the same old thing that we've seen. We're so used to 80% of the time seeing the white males be the leads and do these stories. And so whenever you throw in anything different, we have cool Asian representation in it. You know what I mean?
A
We
really
have
diverse cast.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
I'm working on. I've already started working on. We got to get a sister in there, but this stuff takes time, and this stuff, and it's and the thing I love about how we work, we're not trying to do stuff for woke sake. We're doing everything for story's sake. So if it's organic, great. But you can start. See, sometimes you have and I think Disney fell victim to this, and Eisner came out and said, no more. Would you just start doing the woke stories and let's have this person and let's have, oh, this person is in a wheelchair. We know now that's cool and that's great if it's organic to the storytelling.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I think it feels forced and a little insulting to just say, okay, so this story coming from this tough female point of view, you have to have the talent to match it. We believe her. We believe that she can carry the show. We believe that she's a badass. We believe that she's a great teacher and a great mentor. We first and foremost, you have to buy that. And so a lot of times when people create these kinds of shows, you don't believe it.
Mm.
It's great concept, but you don't believe it because they're not pulling off. Well, she pulls it off, and he, as her partner, pulls it off. Lori Loughlin pulls it off with her. She's always had that's Aunt Becky squeaky clean reputation, and she comes in here and she's throwing f-bombs and you're like, but she pulls it off. So it's not like, oh, we're casting her because of this. We're not casting him
Right.
because of this. We're not casting him because he's Asian, and we are casting people that are
'Cause they
credible
can do it, yes.
who
They
do
can
it.
do it.
Yeah.
Let me remind folks, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking to Eriq La Salle. He is actor, director, executive producer of On Call, a new streaming series, the first in the Wolf Camp. I love that you all call it that, in the Wolf Camp.
Yes.
And you have introduced it to the streaming world, and it came out the gates at #1. That is really something that you all should feel very, very proud of. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the casting because, as someone who's look, I come from regular TV and now I'm in the streaming world too as an observer, as a consumer, but I loved seeing actors like and you mentioned a few of them whom I know from regular TV. There are
Right.
people who I'm like, "Oh," and I won't give it away, but I will say this. I was absolutely shocked that the first person that I see, we won't say who it is,
Right.
ends up dead early on, and she's like a star, and I was like, "Oh, she's gonna be in it all the way." Y'all
Right.
killed her off fast.
Right.
That was bold.
Well, that was intentional. That was absolutely
I'm sure.
intentional. And she happens to be, someone. Obviously, she was in the camp, so I've known her for years.
Right.
And I called her up and said, "Hey, can you do this? Can you do this one scene for me, basically? Because here's what we needed. We needed someone, and basically we sort of stole that concept from the movie Scream."
Mm,
Because when you first see when you see Drew Barrymore, the last thing you're thinking is what's going to happen. Something's bad's going to happen to
her.
her. So it's a shock factor. But we needed someone that was memorable, because she, in some ways, becomes a motor for the entire series. Like so much of what our character Harmon is really the memory of her. So we needed the audience to be able to, 4 episodes
Care.
later, say, "Oh, right." Every time they mention her name, you know who they're talking about, and you have an emotional investment. And so I called her up and said, "Listen, would you do this for?" And she was all in, and she had a great time doing it. She's also a director, and really blowing up as a director. So she understood the importance of it, and she came and she put her stamp on it, and it was exactly what we needed because it gives you an emotional string to carry you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question. I think that we have the trailer for On Call. So for folks who are listening, you can hear it. For folks who are watching, you can see it. Let's play the trailer.
We think we know what this job is.
Help! Officer down, officer down.
Until we get that one call.
Ah! 'Cause 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 '
Rocket fuel. How'd you do at the academy?
Second in my class.
Out of how many?
3.
You know I'm big on effort. But if you give me effort, I can teach you the rest.
Got you.
Narcotics unit requesting backup.
Diaz, what's your 20?
Drop the hatchet! Don't do it! I feel like you know everything about me. I know nothing about you.
I work, take care of my dogs. If I'm lucky, I surf.
Police, open up!
Requesting additional units. Requesting backup on suspicion. Need additional units to respond.
Hey, who's that guy?
Ma'am, open up. Take the door.
He's my new trainee. Ooh, is he cool? Jury's still out. I've got some people gunning for me. I don't want that coming off on you.
Know what they say about Harlem? Can't trust her.
You are either 100% with me or not.
Hey, there's no question. I'm 100% with you.
I'm calling in every division.
Every move we make is under a microscope.
We are kicking the hornet's nest. Get out of the car! Hey! Hey! And foot picture to the suspect. No fear, no hesitation, no doubt.
Understood.
Yeah, it's so Eriq, the crazy thing to me is because I watched, I watch all the stuff, that it feels fresh, that it doesn't feel like something you've seen already, that you, as you were talking about, you believe the characters, you believe the storylines, it feels fresh. What happens in the wolf camp where, you can still have a fresh story when there is a formula as well?
Well, I think you use that to your advantage. And I think, listen to, we have to think about who we're talking about here. We're talking about one of the master storytellers. We're talking about arguably one of the greatest producers in television history. I mean, he has the longest running drama ever, the 2 longest running dramas ever. He has multiple.
Law and Order and SVU?
Yes. And SVU is the longest running drama, ever. And I don't think that record will ever be matched in the way that the structure of television is now. So you have this guy who is brilliant, and I'll make a confession here. There was a wonderful moment in casting where we started seeing actors. They were sending in tapes. We saw actresses and actors. And one of the many things I love about the camp is, first of all, my entire career, I've never received as much respect and trust, and as being an African American, in this industry for so long, you're always sort of like, oh, we love you, but we ran out of money because we gave it to the white boys. And you're like, well, they do right by me, not just financially, but creatively. So there's a trust. So we're casting. I had someone else in mind for the lead, and most of us on that Zoom, and so there were maybe 9 people on a Zoom with Dick, and we had seen tapes, and we said, he said Troyan, and we said, I'm not really feeling her. Now, this is his camp. He could easily say, this is who I want. He said, okay, we'll go. So then we narrowed it down to 5 actresses, 5 actors. We bring them in for what's called a chemistry read. We do this all day long and we match. So I said, let's put Troyan first so we can get rid of her. because I didn't think she was it based on her take. And I tell her this as well.
I was about to say, does she know this?
She knows.
Okay.
So I say, let's, and she walks in, and it's me and just another producer, and we're doing this audition. She walks in, and I kid you not, within the first 3 minutes, the other producer, and I looked at each other and said, "Dick is right." Like, we knew. But we did. He could read, because listen, not everyone looks great on these self tapes and whatever. I'm not making excuses for us, but it was what we saw, and we were in agreement. We were like, nah, not blah blah blah. So we had other choices. 3 people like this person, 3 people like She was not. Dick was the one that said she's the one, and so that tells you about his instincts over being this guy that has been in this business as long as he has had the success that he's had. And I love the fact that he never dictated, he never said.
So that's the part when you talk about that, because leadership is an interesting thing to contemplate, especially for you. You've had leadership roles. I mean, executive producer is a leadership role. And to have him, to learn from him as a mentor, even if in his heart and soul and experience, he knows he's not saying you have to do something.
Exactly.
So can you talk about yourself as a leader and what you've learned from him and how you kind of implement that in your work?
Well, I sit back, I watch how he does things. I nickname him Uncle Dick because he's, and I've known Dick for, I don't know, 30 years. So I actually did a medical show as an actor with him, and I did 2 shows, and when I started doing episodic directing, because my directorial debut was for HBO, Rebound, and then I did the pilot for Soul Food on Showtime. So I came in, and then I came to episodic television. So SVU was the first show that I directed. So there's been this really cool history, and that episode ended up being a very, very popular episode. It was with Blair Underwood and Michael Michelle. It was called Burn, and it was this toxic married couple that were killing, like, just doing horrible things to each other. Anyway, so that's how I came into it. So we have this long story history. So I've had an opportunity to learn from him, and to he's very direct, which so am I. You might not always agree with Dick, but unlike many Hollywood producers, you will know where you stand with Dick. And I, as a man, I'm like, I'm good with that. So I take what I learned from him, but then I put my spin on it. So I think a perfect example as far as leadership goes, I was working on Chicago PD, and we have a technical advisor there by the name of Brian Luch. And Brian Luch is the heart of the show. He's a former cop. He makes everyone look good, but more than that, he really injects his soul into the show. And so I came along, when I came on board season 5 of the show, I changed the culture of the show. And one day he and I are sitting around, and he says, I just got to tell you that I really, really love working for you. I'm learning, I'm growing, and you give me so much freedom. I see how you treat other people. You empower other people, and I just have to say, I love working for you. Nice. And I said, no. He goes, what do you mean? I said, dude, you don't work for me, you work with me. Very good. And so that has been, even to this day, he says how that sort of changed because see what in our industry, and I think this is applicable to many industries, first and foremost, treat people with respect, empower people, trust people. You hire the people that you respect that can do the job. Now, some jobs, sometimes you inherit people that can't do the job. And but that's all right. But in this instance, I surround myself with people, just as Dick Wolf invited me into his camp. He trusts me. He doesn't micromanage me. He doesn't, like shut me down. We have conversations, and every once in a while I have to go, dude, you grew up watching this guy's work, and now you're collaborating with him.
Right. Right. That's awesome. I love that.
And so, and he's not afraid to say what he feels. I do the same, and not everyone can handle the truth, but I'd rather hurt you with the truth than to entertain you with a lie that's going to ultimately,
that feels like a meme. We need to put that out on social media right now.
you know,
Guys, let me remind you, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. Eriq La Salle is dropping knowledge right now. Okay, we're making a meme today.
so that's well, but that's again, that's because, and here's a key piece of the architecture of who I am as a producer, as a director. I came on when I started. I said, particularly when I started on the Chicago PD. So now I'm the the boss and running things on the ground. And I always told the actors, I said, I'm going to treat you guys the way I always wish to be treated. That means I'm going to be always honest with you. You might not like what I have to say, but me coming up, I've been lied to. I've been, all the BS of why we don't have this, why we can't do this, why we can't do that. So I want to be the type of producer that I've always wanted. I want to be the type of director that I've always wanted. So as a director, I'm known for being a performance director. So I like to go in and pull extra stuff out of actors, good actors. If they're bad actors, elevating bad actors so that they're good. If they're good actors, elevating good actors and so that they're excellent. So that's how I approach it. And I've always wanted the kind of directors that's going to make me better as an actor. And a lot of directors, they come in, they set up the shots. They don't know how to talk to actors. They do it, and you got to kind of figure it out. So I always wanted to be someone that an actor could turn to and say, I'm having problems with this. How do I get there? And like I said, the wide range, even like I've worked with very successful actors that I've been able to help get to a place, whereas a lot of times directors come in, they're intimidated by them. And I remember working on a show early in my career. I was working with Anthony LaPaglia. It was on the show Without a Trace. And they kept saying, oh, Anthony doesn't like direction. He doesn't like direction. He doesn't like direction. I was like, okay. So, second day I worked with him. He comes, he didn't work the first day. Second day he comes in, I start talking to him. I give him some direction. And he's just absorbing it. He's doing it. And at the end of the day, he comes up to me and goes, man, thank you so much for giving me direction. He said, I just hate it when people give me stupid direction. I love it when I get good direction. So see, people's perception was, oh my God, he like most of us actors, we hate stupid direction. We know you don't know
all industries.
we know you don't know what you're
wait. So here's the question, Eriq, because when I think about, yes, people in your industry, but really any other will do for this point as the leader, because I'm thinking of like executives in executive roles or people, whatever their role is. When you're working with someone who is mediocre, who maybe you can't get rid of, or it wouldn't be the kindest thing to get rid of them. It's better, as you say, to elevate them. How do you deal with the frustration that can come because like, is this worth my time? Is this person putting forth enough effort? There are a lot of questions that come when you come up against someone who's just really not there for whatever the reason is. Whether, by the way, they could be famous. It doesn't matter. Sometimes people aren't there. How do you deal with that knee-jerk thing that may happen inside of you? Like, really?
Well, I think it depends. It's not a blanket statement because it depends on what type of mediocrity you're working with. If you're working with a mediocre person who wants to be better, then that's one thing. If you're working with, I was having dinner with a friend last night, and one of my sayings, and I said this last night, I said, certain mediocre people can be the most dangerous people in the world. They live in a constant state of fear, and they will do everything they can. They live in a constant state of fear of being discovered, of their mediocrity being discovered. And so they will aggressively do anything they can to undermine. And listen, in your career, I'm sure you've run up against people that have dogged you so that the focus was on you and not on their mediocrity. So that's when it's dangerous. But now if you give me someone who doesn't have that, but they're not great, but they want to be better, I can work with that all day long, and I have. And at the end of it, people have been, and you work with people in different reasons. Like now, sometimes one of my flaws, and I'm going to own it. I don't suffer fools easily. So if you're coming up and BSing and pretending you're more than what you are, and I know you're mediocre and you know you're mediocre and you're trying to, like that, I have no patience for.
So what do you do when you don't have patience for that? Do you just call them out?
You have to, as we were talking at dinner last night, because I was out with a friend. And she's a boss. She's an Emmy-winning producer, director. She works with huge star and all of that, right? And so we were having this conversation, and we both arrived at the same point where we said, we have to lean more. We're learning to lean more into grace. Mm-hmm. We're learning to lean more into, it's not that certain things aren't that deep. You put things in a certain perspective. The waiter screwed up our order last night. We're in California. People have lost homes. We're in this fancy restaurant in Beverly Hills. Keep that stuff in perspective. Be kind. Work to be kind. Because sometimes, look, listen, we're all human, and yes, right. You lose your patience. Really important. But again, I lose my patience when people are doubling down and they're being all the microaggressions and they're all of that. But this guy, nice guy, nice waiter, messed up our order twice. We were so kind. We were so kind because he led with kindness. Everything that he was doing before that was cool. So what you have to, and it's constant. And listen, I want to be very, very clear. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm constantly working on that. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm not saying that you have to also understand, we do 12, 14-hour days. As a producer, as a director, I am ultimately responsible for millions of dollars. I am responsible for an average production spends about $300,000 a day. So if I don't make the day, if our schedule is off, if something doesn't get, I ultimately, as a boss, I become responsible. So yes, you can, something's not going right. Someone forgot something. Someone did something that compromises it. Yes, you can get, impatient. And I've lost my patience. I've lost my patience twice in my career. And that's in a 25-year. I'm talking of directing.
Well, we're at the stage. I'm saying we, because I'm assuming we're in the same age group anyhow. Let's just say that where we're supposed to be better. We're supposed to be better now. But our role, I think that our role in life as we get to this stage is to understand what we have learned and to teach. Right. Even when it's somebody who just isn't listening. I was talking to my husband about this the other day. He's a photographer, worked at his company for 40 years. And he's now working with 20-something-year-olds and early 30-something-year-olds who think they know everything. And I remember when I thought I knew everything when I was 20 and 30, and he was getting really frustrated. It's the same thing. And I said, look, you're the griot, you're the teacher. You got, if you wear the hat of teacher, which is what you're describing, right, then you can have patience. You can access grace. Right. But eat more easily. It doesn't mean, yes, you can be frustrated. They're not listening. I told them 20 times, but maybe they really don't know. like you said, that first time actor, maybe they really don't know. And what you know seems so simple to you because you've got however many years of experience of distilling something so simple. But to get to simple takes a whole lot of experience, doesn't it?
Exactly. And that's the, that's the thing that, again, is finding the balance. Like I said, I don't suffer fools easily because, and I don't say that arrogantly, I say it this way. I am so hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think I've been blessed to accomplish the things that I do, because I take it very seriously. I had an actor call me the other night. I hadn't spoken to him in years. And he said, "Hey, do you remember years ago, I asked you to read a script?" And he had told a mutual friend this story, who called me first last week and had me crying. I was cracking up. He said, "Man, I gave Eriq La Salle a script about 20 years ago, and man, he ripped me a new one. He just blah, 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 blah." And he's just going on and going on. And I'm thinking like, well, I didn't think I was, he said, "Man, he was," and he just went in. And my friend is telling the story, and my friend is, a comic. So he's just doubling. I'm on the phone crying. And both of us are crying with him telling the story. So then the actor that had actually, he calls me 2 days later and he says, "Yeah, I was talking about that story and blah, blah, blah." And the punchline was, when he was telling my friend, after they stopped laughing, he said, "Was he right?" And he goes, "Hell yeah, he was right. It was garbage." He said it sucked. But the cool thing was, he was calling me last week to simply say, actually, I'm sorry, earlier this week, he was calling me this week to simply say, "I never gave up on the writing. I realized I had to go get in school. I had to go do this. I had to go do that." So he took it. Now, a lot of people will take that and make you the bad guy.
You're mean.
They're mediocre. You're mean. You're this. And like I said, I thought, and they were exaggerating, and to a degree, but I was like, "Look, man, this is underdeveloped. The characters are this." I'm very straightforward. So I don't lead with meanness. The intention is not to be mean. The intention is to elevate. And so
Elevate truth.
Elevate truth. And so he elevated himself, and he called to tell me, "I finally wrote a script. I just had it shot. I did this." He said, I want to say thank you." And we were and I said, "I heard how you were telling the story last week." And we started, I said, "Man, I was crying." He said, "I was crying when I was telling him." We were cracking up. But he said, the funny thing was, he said, just like all of a sudden, out of all the laughter, our other friend said to him, "Was he right?" And he goes, "Hell yeah, he was right."
I love it. Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We're talking to Eriq La Salle. He is the executive producer, director, and actor on the new streaming series On Call that's on Prime Video right now. And it debuted at #1. This is pretty exciting. So there are 8 episodes. So the only thing for me about streaming is when it's good, you don't want it to end.
Mm-hmm.
And so 8 episodes feels like an appetizer. It doesn't feel like I got the main course yet. So is it being renewed? What's happening?
Well, we have, the thing about this show is twofold. It's 8 episodes, and they're half-hour episodes. But I think it's better to leave people hungry for more than to overstay your welcome. And I think a lot of shows you sort of get a little tired of. So we want this thing that you have. We want, that's one of the #1 things we get, is how much people love the show. When is there a second season? Why is it only a half hour? I want more. I want more. I want more. We're waiting, basically, at this point, we're waiting for Amazon to decide if there will be a second season. I mean, it looks
That's
great.
how it works.
I mean, yeah, that's out of our control.
Right.
I think,
But starting at #1 is helpful, isn't it?
It's very helpful, exactly. So yeah, so you would think, but again, until I'm the kind of person, until you get that and the contracts are signed, you're just cautiously optimistic. So I think we have great cause to be optimistic about this.
Excellent. I want to squeeze in 2 more questions real fast. One, What's happening with the book? Are you closer to turning it into something that's TV or movie?
Well, we are. So I released the third book. So the first book was Laws of Depravity. Second book was Laws of Wrath, and the third book was Laws of Annihilation. I have 2 more books in the series, so it's not a trilogy. I'm actually going to close it out with 5. I have already written book 5. I'm halfway through book 4. So that will be, and then once that happens, that's when
When you do the whole thing. Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
but I am working with someone right now. I can't give too much information, but with that goal of actually the goal is to actually shoot the first 3 books as one. As one in one time slot, so you save money and whatever. So we're looking to yes, we are aggressively looking to do. That's always been the dream. We're aggressively looking to turn the books into streaming or movies.
Okay, and my last question is really about folks in the industry. I know a lot of people in the industry, and there are so many who want to be in it. And we know because of the strikes, because of the pandemic, a lot of people have been sidelined. I know successful people of every background who like have moved back home with their parents even when they're grown because they're not working. It's not
Right.
because they aren't talented, it's because the work has shrunk. What do you see on the horizon given all of the factors that are at play right now in terms of the growth of the industry?
Well, I think tragically, the industry will never be what it was. So we have to find what is the new normal. And the irony that most people can't understand is like, how can anyone be unemployed? We have more networks than we've ever had. We have more outlets than we've ever had, but we have more people. So if you just think about this, if you say, okay, just throwing out magic numbers. If 10 years ago we had 50,000 people working in the industry, and I'm just throwing out this number,
You're right.
then all of a sudden everything starts expanding. Now we have 350,000.
Mm,
Then it shrinks again. And that's what's happening. So think about this. You don't make as many feature films as you used to make. Everyone's looking at cutting back. Shows run shorter. So back in the day, these shows, when I did ER, we did 22, 24 episodes, even Chicago PD. Dick Wolf's camp does those 22, but most shows don't even do 22. So all you needed was that one job and you were straight. Now you need multiple jobs. So you have more people. People can't sustain themselves off of 8 episodes. That's 4 months of work. So particularly crew people, unless you're like some actor that's being paid handsomely, crew people come in. So after 4 months, they got to jump on another job. So that field keeps getting, so it's hard. So I don't think we'll ever be I know we will never be where we were. We're trying to find this new normal. And yes, unfortunately, and tragically, a lot of people, good, talented, hardworking people, are, they're competing with this in this sea of people every 3 or 4 months. Hey, this person's looking for this after the minute a show goes down. So that's the dynamic. So how do we get past that? I don't know. But I think this is one of the last things I'll say is, I think with a show like On Call, what we've shown is how to do this is an inexpensive show, comparatively speaking. We have 2 regulars. Everyone else is a recurring. So that changes how you do the contracts. We have no standing sets. The police station is the only set so we haven't built sets. We go, we rent, we shoot, we're done. So what we've shown, the model of this show shows that it's got a lot of action. It's not a cheap looking show. It's not a cheap feeling show. It's not shot in one location and it feels claustrophobic. We get out and about. So I think that this type of innovation in storytelling is ultimately the key to our salvation. I think this is the kind of stuff I'm not saying this is the show that's going to save Hollywood. I'm simply saying, as we start coming up with more creative ways of shooting these shows, that will ultimately save a lot. Will it save everyone? No, unfortunately, but it will save many more because we can do more shows. We can, this is half the budget of what most of these things are. And it's still number one, and it's still number one in the world, and it's still number one in 40 countries. why not? We're getting the same, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Thank you, Eriq. It's always good to talk to you. Congratulations on Call. Can't wait to see what happens with those books. And until next time, it's just wonderful to be with you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for all, you're always so supportive and cool. So I always appreciate you. Thank you.
You are most welcome. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. I told you it was going to be good. Now you go and watch On Call. Those 8 episodes, you're going to eat them up. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.